Choosing to move to California was not a decision I made lightly, it was a necessity and my only option. The job market in my hometown had dried up, and I felt trapped. My old friend Aiden had been urging me for months to come out west. "Give the city a shot," he said, promising to help me get on my feet. He had built a solid life there driving trucks, a job he had held for years. He seemed confident California would suit me, and after so much uncertainty, I needed someone to believe that. So, I packed my things, left the familiar behind, and I set off, hoping he was right. When I arrived, he welcomed me warmly, introducing me to his mother, Charlotte. Tall, graceful, and with an otherworldly beauty that seemed almost timeless, Charlotte had an undeniable charm. Her eyes held a warmth that drew me in, a kindness that seemed even more striking against her statuesque frame and dark blonde hair that cascaded down her shoulders. She was the sort of person who left an impression. You couldn't quite shake the feeling she was something rare, something set apart. Life in the house was comfortable, and I quickly found myself in a rhythm. Charlotte went out of her way to make me feel welcome, preparing meals that were as vibrant and inviting as her personality. She was elegant and kind, but I could sense a hint of something else, a depth, a sadness perhaps, that I didn't fully understand. Aiden had briefly mentioned that his parents were separated, but beyond that, I hadn't pried. One evening over dinner, when Aiden was late, Charlotte shared more about her life. She mentioned her husband, a bank manager, who'd left a decade ago after an affair with his colleague, Sophia. The betrayal had left her shaken, yet she seemed almost resigned to it now. She'd poured herself into raising Aiden and crafting a life of her own, a quiet strength woven into her every word. There was a spark in her that drew me in, an energy I couldn't quite place but that left me feeling more alive whenever we spoke. It wasn't long before I realized that the attraction was mutual, though we both avoided acknowledging it. As the days passed, my connection with Charlotte became impossible to ignore. There was something magnetic between us, a pull that seemed to grow stronger with each conversation, each shared glance. She carried herself with such grace, yet there was a raw vulnerability just below the surface, a yearning that I could sense but not fully understand. One evening, after Aiden had left for an overnight delivery, Charlotte and I found ourselves alone in the living room, the soft glow of a single lamp casting warm light across the room. We talked about my job search, about California, and somehow the conversation shifted back to her past. She spoke of the pain she'd endured, the betrayal that had left her feeling abandoned, and the loneliness that still lingered despite her best efforts to move forward. "I suppose some wounds don't heal as easily as others," she said quietly, her gaze drifting out the window. I felt a pang of sympathy, an urge to comfort her in a way that felt dangerously close to something more. "Charlotte, I'm sorry, no one deserves that kind of pain," I replied softly. She looked at me then, her eyes searching mine, and I could feel the weight of her gaze, as though she were seeing past my words, into something deeper. Her hand brushed against mine, and I felt a spark, an electric charge that I knew we both felt but couldn't acknowledge. In that quiet moment, something shifted. It wasn't just attraction, it was an understanding, a mutual recognition of shared vulnerability, something neither of us could put into words. The boundary between us had blurred, and in that single glance,